Whether the team is performing clean or unsightly, we're covered all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. I cannot stress to you guys just how big of a game this is, but I'm going to continue to harp and beat this horse that has been long dead, that this game is just as big as last week's game. And I feel like the vibe should be the exact same. You should be going into this game with the exact same mindset because the ramifications are very similar. Now, 2-2 versus 1-3. Granted, I get it. We're back to 500, so you would just essentially be going back under 500 by a game and not 2 games like last week's game if you had lost. I understand that, but I've already laid out for you why this feels like last week, and I'm going to do it again just in case you didn't catch the last episode or the episode before that, the episode before that when I tried to explain to you that this game is just as big as last week's on the road at Atlanta. Now, here, let me set the table first and why the vibe should be the same, the energy should be the exact same, and we're going to need more focus and effort than we had last week. Last week, we were playing an NFC South team. This week, we're playing an NFC South team. Last week, we were playing a team with the exact same record. This week, we're playing a team with the exact same record, okay? Last week, we were playing a team that, hey, they want to win. They probably don't have to win. They got the Jets next week over in London. They can win next week. Hey, we got a team this week. They want to win. They don't need to win. They got a bye week next week. They'll be fine. Okay, we got Kansas City coming to town and then at Green Bay the week after that. So we don't have an opportunity to recalibrate, hit the reset button, get some guys healthy, fresh, back off of injury, and then go back after it again. We got to go and pull up the bootstraps and try to get it done against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs next week. So the table has been set, okay? A lot of similarities between last week's game and this week's game. But let's dive in. Deep dive into why this is as big, if not bigger, than last week's game. Last week was massive because if you can't beat the Falcons, and I'm not looking at the Saints in the same way. If you can't beat the Falcons, then you don't deserve to go have yourself a season, okay? You have to find a way to win that game. And despite us struggling and only winning by 4, I don't care. I told you I never care how it looks. I just want to get it done. And we did that last week. Now, with that said, you couldn't afford to fall to 1-3 last week. That was a death sentence, and it would have been a nail essentially in the coffin. You got the win. You got back to 500, but this game is just as important as last week's because you can't afford to drop to 2-3 knowing what is on the horizon. You can't afford it. Now, again, it's not impossible. Unlike years past where it felt like you were going on a kamikaze mission. It felt like we were going on a kamikaze mission going into Buffalo, and it absolutely was. There was no way we were coming out of that thing alive, and we didn't. It feels that way on the surface, on the outside looking in, but Kansas City has not been Kansas City this season. That's why they're sitting there with the same record as us right now at 2-2. Green Bay, although they're 3-1, this same Saints team that we're playing this week destroyed Green Bay in week 1. The Packers haven't looked like a dominant Packers team like they did last year. They look more like the Packers team that had a record that was dominant 2 years ago, but you were like, this feels like a house of cards. You pull the right card and this whole thing will come tumbling down. Both of those games seem, on the surface, to be winnable, but with the way we're playing defense right now, do you really think we're going to hold Mahomes under 40? Do you really think we're going to stop Rodgers from scoring 38? At this juncture, I'd like to say a hard no for both. So, in my mind, I don't think we're winning either one of those games as it stands right now. But we'll cross those bridges when we get there. The biggest thing is you don't want to go into those games needing to win one of them. You want to go into those games wanting to win one of them. You see the difference there? If you win this week against New Orleans, then you want to win one of those 2 games. If you win neither, you're still fine. If you lose this week to New Orleans, then you go into those next 2 games needing to win one of them. See the difference? We don't want to need to beat Kansas City or Green Bay or Green Bay. We want to beat Kansas City or Green Bay or Green Bay. That's the difference between want and need is beating the Saints. That's the difference. You lose to the Saints, you're 2-3. You lose to the Chiefs, you're 2-4. You lose to the Packers, you're 2-5. And now, even if you beat the Broncos before the bye, which that's on the road, and that's not a gimme, you're 3-5, and you're coming off the bye with Tampa Bay staring you in the face at the crib. More likely than not, you're 3-6. You don't want to go down that road. You don't want to go down that road. How about you build more momentum? You know what I always like to say. Winning begets confidence. Confidence begets winning. It's a vicious, flavor, delicious cycle that you want to keep repeating over and over and over and over again. Well, we just won one. If you win another one, that's 2 in a row. Maybe you take that confidence, maybe you take that streak into the game against Kansas City, and you find a way to get it and make it 3 in a row. And then all of a sudden you go to Lambeau in week 7 and you're saying, hey, why not us? Why can't we beat the Packers? I'm not saying, I'm just saying. That's how things happen. But you got to win. Before you can win 1 or 2, you got to win 1. We did that. Now we got a chance to win 2. Let's see if we can get that done. This is a massive game. And the Saints are ripe for the picking. Now the question is, first of all, so are we, okay? They're looking at us like food. We're looking at them like food. Somebody's got to eat. Who's going to have the fork, the napkin tucked in their shirt and the fork? Who's going to have the knife, the fork, and the napkin? And who's going to be on the plate? That's what we're going to have to decide on Sunday. But I need you guys to understand the sense of urgency that exists here with this football game. You should have the same energy for this game as you had for last game. If we don't beat the Saints, we have a problem. A big, big problem. Now, unlike last week, and this is the only difference, it's a big difference, but it's the only difference. Last week, if we lost, the season was over. Pretty much. Because you're 1-3, even if you beat the Saints, you're still in the predicament that you have a chance to be in right now, which is, hey, bro, doesn't matter what you do. You're under 500, and you're probably going to lose the next 2 games. You're going to be 2-5 going into week 8 against the Broncos on the road on Halloween evening. And you may be 2-6, you may be 3-5 going into the bye, but you're in trouble. The most likely scenario that we were hoping for was to get to the bye week at 500. I've said all along, if we got to the bye week at 3-5, it's still doable, but then you're gonna have to get hot, like white hot, late, and win some games like at home on a Monday night versus Seattle. You're gonna have to win some of those. Carolina, I don't know if it's at Carolina or home for Carolina. It doesn't matter. Carolina's all of a sudden good. You're gonna have to beat them. You're gonna have to take care of business down the stretch in the division. You have to find a way to win a lot of these games that you looked at and said, I don't know. Well, you don't have a choice now. Got to figure it out. So if you get to 4-4 at the bye, you've given yourself some breathing room. Even if you don't beat Tampa first week off the bye, you're 4-5. You can then rebound thereafter and get it together. You want to stay as close to 500 as you possibly can. The further and further you get away from 500, the less and less likely you're going to be able to dig yourself out of the hole because, again, we're getting closer and closer to the end of the season. So you want to stay as close as you can to 500 as possible. If you can exceed 500 and get away from it in the left-hand column, then yeah, go for it. But when we start talking about the right-hand column, that's when you say, okay, let's try to stay as close as we can to 500. With this schedule, that's what it is. We're trying to manage this schedule. It is brutal. There's no two ways about it. This schedule is brutal. We knew it coming in. It's the kind of schedule that's brutal that'll split your noodle if you're not careful. We're doing a solid job. We could have been 3-1 right now. We could have been doing a better job, but we're doing a solid job of navigating our way through, but we haven't gotten to the shits yet. That's coming after this week. So in order to prepare yourself for the shits that's coming, that you got to try to navigate, you need to win this game against the Saints. So keep that same energy. That's the message. Just like last week, you had to have it. This week is no different. It's the reddest orange you could possibly have. Let's get to in other news. And the first thing that anybody wants to talk about, including me, is the injury report. It was a laundry list of guys yesterday, but I told you don't panic. There were 12 names on it. I said of those 12, I'm going to say that 3 are definitely out. And I've already told you the names. Brandon Sheriff, Cam Sims, and Dyami Brown aren't playing. Don't look for them. Don't hold your breath. They're not playing this week. And I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't play next week either. I think 2 weeks from this week, so 3 weeks from now, they'll be ready. That's why you don't put them on IR, because if you put them on IR, they have to miss 3 games. I think they're only going to miss 2. And then they'll be ready for that 3rd game, which is at Green Bay. But I don't think they're playing this week. Well, I know they're not playing this week, and I don't think they're playing next week either against Kansas City. But we'll see. But I said the other 9 guys, I fully expect them to play. Well, there's one exception to that rule. We're going to talk about that here in a second. Let's take a closer look at the injury report for Week 5 versus the New Orleans Saints. So, as you can see, we've got our 12 guys here. And as you can see, the bottom 6, I told you yesterday, we're going to split this thing into halves. The first half, the first 6, and the bottom half, the second 6. The bottom half, the second 6, those guys are fine. You don't need to concern yourself with them. They're playing this Sunday, okay? Jonathan Allen with the knee, he was limited yesterday. He was limited today. He's going to play. DeShazer Everett with a knee, he was limited yesterday. He's limited today. He's going to play. Matt Ioannidis with a knee, he was limited yesterday. He was limited today. He's going to play. J.D. McKissick with an ankle. We didn't even know about him until yesterday. He was limited yesterday. He's full participant today. He's going to play. James Smith-Williams, was a little concerned about him when I heard about the toe. But again, we didn't know about that until yesterday. Limited yesterday, full participant today. He's going to play. And then Benjamin St-Juste, I told you, I thought it would be a 1-week injury. Generally, when you get concussions, a guy misses a game, unless it's severe. He was out there last week, so that let me know it's not as severe. Okay, and I'm not the concussion police, and nor am I a medical physician, so I can't tell you if it is severe or not, but he was out there. If it's a serious concussion, that means you're sensitive to light, you have nausea. He wouldn't have been out at practice last week stretching and doing all of those things. So I said, he'll miss this game, which he did, and I said, next game, he'll be back, and it looks like he's going to be back. Benjamin St-Juste, limited on Wednesday, full participant today. So good to have him back in the mix. We definitely missed him last week. So those 6 guys are going to play. Don't worry about them. All right. It's the top 6 where you're going to have the issues and may have a issue or 2 arise. So the top 6, Dyami Brown, Antonio Gibson, Cole Holcomb, Curtis Samuel, Brandon Sheriff, and Cam Sims. Dyami Brown with the knee, I already told you, don't look for him. He's not playing this week. And he didn't practice Wednesday, he didn't practice Thursday, and he's not practicing tomorrow. They could go ahead and just put his game statuses out. They're not going to do it because they don't have to right now, but he's out. Antonio Gibson with the shin, he didn't practice yesterday. This is the same repeat of the last 2 weeks with him. It was the shoulder 2 weeks ago. It's the shin last week. It's the shin this week. He's playing, okay? Limited today. He didn't practice Wednesday. It was the same thing last week. It was the same thing the week before that. He'll be fine. He'll be a go on Sunday. Cole Holcomb, shoulder, didn't really know the severity of his injury. We knew he left the game briefly. Didn't practice on Wednesday, and which is standard protocol for most teams in the NFL. When you got a guy out nicked up, you don't push him on Wednesday. That's install day. So you'd rather have those guys taking a mental inventory of what's going on and then have them hit the practice field on Thursday. Cole Holcomb, limited participant on Thursday. So feeling really good about him playing, as I told you yesterday. Now, here's where things get interesting. Curtis Samuel. Groin. Didn't practice Wednesday, which was not a surprise. Okay? Didn't practice Thursday. Surprise! Thought we would get a limited out of him today. But they don't want to push him. Now, just because we got 2 DNPs back to back doesn't mean we won't get an LP tomorrow. But if we don't get an LP tomorrow, I think we're not getting Curtis Samuel on Sunday. I could be wrong about that. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because I still think they're just being precautious here, and they don't want to push him too far because they did push him too much on Sunday, which we'll get to in a second. So I'm still holding out hope that they're saying, hey, he doesn't need to practice the entire week. We know that this guy is a gamer. We put him out there. He's going to give us some juice on Sunday. He doesn't need to practice. He doesn't need to run the plays. He already knows them. He showed us that last week. We should be fine. Let's see. I'm holding out hope that this guy could play because we could really use him, especially with the depth at receiver being tested. And look, we're going to have 2 receivers down. Dax Milne is probably going to get one of those spots. I really don't want to see Kelvin Harmon or AGG getting on the field. I would much rather see Curtis Samuel being on the football field a little bit more. But even with that said, you still got DeAndre Carter who can help out. You still got a healthy Adam Humphries. You still got a healthy Terry McLaurin. You got enough guys if Curtis Samuel plays. If he doesn't, then you're going to have to ask a guy that you shouldn't be comfortable being on the field to play and play some big snaps for us. Whether it's AGG or it's Kelvin Harmon or it's Dax Milne, you're going to have to ask a guy to do some things that you shouldn't be asking him to do, especially this early in the season. So, let's hope that Curtis Samuel can go, and that will avoid us having to ask Dax Milne or, Kelvin Harmon or AGG or whomever they decide to pull up to help us. Let's avoid that if we can. So, a little nervous about that. We'll see. Brandon Sheriff, knee, didn't practice Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday. He's not playing. I already told you that. Just like I said with De'Ami Brown and Cam Sims, you can go ahead and rule them out of this game right now. They're not going to do it, but they could go ahead and do it. We already know what it is. And Cam Sims, as I just mentioned, with the hamstring, didn't practice yesterday, didn't practice today. He's not going to practice tomorrow. He's not going to play on Sunday. So that's the injury report for Washington. You go down to the Saints. I think we're going to get a break on their offensive line. And if I were the Saints, this is how I would be approaching it. I got a bye week next week. I don't need to bring anybody back a week earlier than I need to. Eric McCoy is a center for them, a huge part of their offensive line. Same could be said for their left tackle, Teron Armstead, who seems to always have some kind of ailment. Neither one of those guys have practiced the first 2 days of the week. I think those guys are going to be out. They didn't play last week and haven't played. So I don't think those guys need to come back now. I think you bring them back after the bye week. You give them this week and next week, and then they should be ready to go the week afterwards. So that's the way I would approach it. And I've already said it's going to be pretty even in terms of how many guys we have out, how many guys they have out. They got a bunch of guys out on IR and on the PUP list with Michael Thomas. So they're going to have a bunch of guys out. So it's no excuse. Whether we have injuries or not, they have injuries as well. So no excuses necessary. We got to find a way to get it done, just like they're going to try to find a way to get it done despite all of the injuries that they have. So that's what the injury report looks like. Let's talk about what was said at the presser today. Today was Coordinator Thursday with Scott Turner and Del Rio approaching the podium and speaking. And you got a little bit more out of Del Rio this week than normal. He was pretty candid when speaking about the defense. He was not happy with the way the game was officiating. Nobody was. Okay, the game was officiated very poorly. I stated that. I talked about it on Studs and Duds. I talked about it with you guys on the live show after the game on Overtime. I talked about it various times. I think on Monday I came back and I spoke about it again. But again, even if we had lost the game, it wouldn't have been because of the officiating. It would have been because we didn't make enough plays. We didn't make enough stops on defense, things of that nature. But they came close to costing us the game. Along with Dustin Hopkins and some missed opportunities and some poor tackling and some of those things. They were horrendous. And Jack Del Rio said Chase Young was robbed of a sack. I believe that to be the case. He said that which then resulted into a touchdown. That drive should have been over. That was 4th down. It was a sack. We should have gotten the ball right there at the 40-some-odd yard line, and we should have been having an opportunity to take the lead. We would have been down 23-22 at that point with the football right around midfield with a chance to take the lead. And with the way the offense was playing, I don't know if the Falcons would have been able to stop us, but that's nor here nor there. He also said that he didn't agree with some of the pass interference calls, one on William Jackson III and the other on Torrey McTyer. Remember, Torrey McTyer had 2 pass interferences, and then they picked one of them up. And I thought that was a break because they could have easily left that one on the field because both of those guys were holding each other, but Torrey McTyer was holding the receiver there, and he didn't look back for the football. So they could have easily left that, and that was a 3rd down that they would have converted again via penalty. Same with William Jackson. His was a 3rd down that they converted via penalty, and I thought that was a penalty. I didn't agree with Jack on that one. William Jackson III had no idea where the football was. He had his hand on the receiver. They could have kept it in their pocket because he let him go. He did this whole pirouette. He had no idea where the ball was, and then Calvin Ridley dropped the football. Should have caught it over the shoulder, but at the end of the day, he wasn't happy with the way the game was officiated. And you could argue, I won't argue, but you could argue that the whistle being blown and the play being blown dead because of forward contact, forward momentum being stopped, and forward progress being stopped when Cole Holcomb ripped the football out and then scooped it up. You could argue that was BS. So I thought the game was poorly officiated as well, but that's nor here nor there. He talked about Jamin Davis getting an opportunity with John Bostic being out. He said it's a great opportunity for Bostic, it's a great opportunity for Jamin Davis, and he's happy for him and he's happy for the team because he thinks it's going to be mutually beneficial. Good to get the young fella some more reps, but also he's been playing well. And I've talked about that, Studs and Duds, talked about it again, talked about it with you guys. So you can see the progress being made, and I think it's only going to get better when he gets more and more snaps. So he talked about that, and he talked about the defense. Guys keep stepping up to the podium and talking about, we know what we have to do. We just got to go out and execute this, that, and the third. And Jack's pretty much like, I ain't trying to hear that shit. Guys can talk all they want, but actions speak louder than words. Like, get it done. You can tell guys are getting fed up. Like, to me, the tip of the iceberg isn't when you get missed tackles, even though that's frustrating because you got guys in the right position. It's not when you get a 6'4" receiver on a 6-foot corner and he just top shelves them. Shit happens, okay? Which is what Cordero Patterson did to Kendall Fuller on a 3rd and 13 for a touchdown. Shit happens. It's frustrating, but it happens. It's just a better throw, better catch, better play. The shit that's frustrating is when you call cover 3 and it's a basic principle and your safety, I don't know what the hell he's looking at and where he's running to, decides to bail out of the middle of his deep third and allows a guy to walk into the end zone. Like, that's the kind of shit that just frustrates you where you're like, dude, what the F? So Jack's like, I don't really want to hear the shit about, we know what to do. We just got to do it. Then do it. Don't talk about it. Do it. So you can sense a little bit of frustration there. But again, they're going to stick together. They're going to figure this thing out. I can tell you, watching the game over again and watching it intently, they're getting close. The rush was a lot better, 10 times better. And in the secondary, things were a lot tighter. They were a lot tighter. There were some really tight window throws by Matt Ryan. And I like the direction. I thought that Bobby McCain played well despite a couple of mishaps. Thought he actually played well. There were more good than bad with him in the game. They're trending in the right direction. Cam Curl needs more snaps. Period. End of discussion. He, to me, is the best nickel defender that we have. Cam Curl needs more snaps. Period. I don't want to have a discussion about it. He needs to play more. Period. End of discussion. And if that has to come at the expense of Landon Collins, so be it. I need to see more Cam Curl. I don't think that needs to be a discussion that needs to be had. 31 needs to be on the field more. Period. Scott Turner talked about the most important quote from Scott Turner during his presser was regarding Curtis Samuel, where he said, we had him on a pitch count and we exceeded that by quite a bit. Now, that wasn't intentionally done. you had injuries to both De'Ami Brown and Cam Sims, which pretty much forced Curtis Samuel, never ever trust a man with two first names, onto the field a little bit more. He was supposed to play no more than 15 snaps in this game. That was his pitch count. He played 25 snaps. So they pushed him a little bit more than they wanted to. And I think that's part of the reason you're seeing this guy not practice this week. I'm not ruling him out, but I think they felt like, shit, yeah, we didn't really want to play him as much as we did, but we really didn't have a choice. We had some injuries that forced him into the game. So we'll see what happens. I can tell you this much. Things get exponentially harder offensively if there's no Curtis Samuel, even if he only plays for 15 to 20 snaps. Shit gets a lot harder when he's not available. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, you really are down to three guys: Terry, Hump, and DeAndre Carter if there's no Curtis Samuel. I mean, and you're already without Logan Thomas. Shit gets real thin. It's a night and day difference if he's able to play versus not being able to play. So here's to hoping that he can play, because it will change things drastically for us. Again, I don't know what Dax Milne does or doesn't know, but they've been working him as a slot, which same thing can be said for Hump. I don't know if those guys are well-versed enough to go outside, but, you're putting yourself in quite the bind if there's no Curtis Samuel for the upcoming game. So that's something to keep in mind. That said, let's get to our first look at the New Orleans Saints heading into week number 5. As I mentioned, both teams come into the game at 2-2. The Saints are coming off of a heartbreaking overtime loss. Meanwhile, we're coming off of a thrilling win. So I've stated this already. The Saints haven't lost 2 games in a row this season. We haven't won 2 games in a row. If we want to have something give, we can make both of those things happen this Sunday. We can win 2 in a row and also hand the Saints their second consecutive loss. If they win, then the trend continues. They'll keep winning every other week, and we'll keep losing every other week. We don't want that to happen. And let's just talk about a few things initially, and then we'll really deep dive tomorrow with our behind enemy lines and our prediction. First things first, this will be the best defensive front that we've seen since week 1. And the Saints really boast a 3-4 defensive front, but they have Cam Jordan, who is one of the best pass rushers in the league and doesn't get enough credit for what he is for the Saints defensively. Now, they've lost some of their juice off the edge. No Marcus Davenport. I think he's banged up and on IR currently. And they lost Trey Hendrickson, one of their edge rushers, who was really vital to their success last year in free agency to the Cincinnati Bengals. So they're not the same pass rushing team that they once were, but Cam Jordan is capable of dominating Sam Cosmi if he is not ready now. I like Sam Cosmi 4 weeks later after the week 1 Joey Bosa debacle. I like him in week 5. I like him and where he is and his maturation since then. So we'll see how he plays. And, hopefully he's able to adjust to life without Brandon Sheriff, because, it's always been a comfort to have Sheriff next to him. Now Sheriff is out. I thought Schweitzer did a great job in his relief, but we'll see what happens. Cam Jordan is a pretty damn good pass rusher in his own right. The Saints feature a defense that can be dominant at times. And unlike the defense we played against last week where interceptions were dropped, if Taylor Heineke makes mistakes this week, much like the Buffalo game, the Saints will pick him off. They are a very opportunistic defense. They don't miss opportunities to force turnovers, and they have ball-hawking playmakers in that secondary, including Marshawn Lattimore, who Terry knows very well. They came to Ohio State together. Terry talked about that during his presser yesterday. And they have a safety that they just slapped the franchise tag on in Marcus Williams, who is a stud back there and a ball magnet. So they can make plays, and they've got a rookie that I think we need to try to take advantage of in Paulson Adebo at the cornerback position, who is up for the challenge, but you can give him some work. So but he's a ball hawker too. So we got to be careful this week. You know, you make a mistake, you pay for a mistake this week, unlike last week where we got away with a couple of things. So hopefully Taylor Heineke is a lot more mindful of that this week. But the first thing that I'm going to look at is off defensively, the Saints want to run it. And if they can't run it, then you force Jameis Winston to have to beat you. And I can't think of a better position to be in than to ask Jameis Winston to beat us with limited weaponry, throwing the football wise. Now, Alvin Kamara is a problem. We know this. Everyone else knows this. We got to make sure that we don't allow him to hurt us out of the backfield. But they got one receiver, really, Marquise Callaway. Like, that's the deep threat. That's the guy that's hurting you from 20 to 20, and that's the guy that's getting deep vertically and making big plays for Jameis Winston. We've been giving up some big plays. We've had some defensive breakdowns in the secondary. If that happens this week, Jameis, you say what you want about him, he doesn't miss the deep ball. That's one thing he doesn't do. So if we make a mistake, Jameis is going to make us pay vertically. Also, they've got a tight end in the red zone that's about 6'4", huge guy, tremendous catch radius. I think his name is Johnson. I can't think of his first name, but I think it's 2 J's. He's a problem. Juwan Johnson is his name, as a matter of fact. It just came to me. Yeah, he's a problem. So he's a guy that we're going to have to, I think it's Juwan Johnson. It's Juwan something. He's a problem in the red zone especially. And that's another guy we're going to have to keep tabs on, especially in the red zone. But if we can limit their offensive production on the ground, and they just lost one of their running backs, Tony Jones Jr., is now out on IR. If we can limit their production on the ground, Alvin Kamara had over 20 carries for over 100 yards on the head. I think it was 26 carries, 100 yards against the Giants. We can't allow that to happen in this game. If we can limit their rushing attack, and we did a tremendous job of clogging up the run last week. If we can do that again this week and force Jameis Winston to beat us, I think we got a really good shot, a really, really good shot of beating the New Orleans Saints. So I think that's the first look at the Saints is you gotta take away the run and force Jameis Winston to beat us. Obviously, they got Taysom Hill, and we're going to see Taysom Hill, and he's a man beast. And if we tackle like we did last week, he is going to shred us, absolutely embarrass us. So you got to come with your hard hat and lunch pail when you're trying to get Taysom Hill on the ground because he is a load to deal with. With that said, I'm more concerned with limiting them on the ground with their running backs. And if Taysom Hill gets it, then we need to, give him the proper attention that he deserves. But at the end of the day, if they're going to beat us, more likely than not, it's going to be because we didn't get stops on third down, and Jameis Winston was able to hit some big plays. Because if you make the Saints have to earn it on 13 and 12 and 14 play drives, you just assume Jameis Winston is going to mess it up at some point. There will be a mistake made. You have to go in with that mindset. Keep everything in front of you. Don't give up the big plays. Make them earn it. So we'll come back to that tomorrow. We'll deep dive tomorrow and really get into what it will take to finally get over 500 for the first time this season at 3-2 and really go into that Chiefs game next week with some momentum. Can't think about the Chiefs right now. We got to focus on this one right in front of us against the Saints, and it's going to be a big one, and we're back home for the first time in 2 weeks. So looking forward to it, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow, get the keys to the game, and then I'll give you my prediction for the outcome. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Washington Football Nightly. I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. Look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow. Give you guys my keys to the game and the outcome. If you've got any comments, leave them down below in the comment section. A lot of you, and I knew last night would ruffle some feathers, but at the end of the day, I respect and love all of you guys and gals out there, and really appreciate you guys for continuing to support the Louie T Network. Until next time, I'm your man Louie T, signing off, telling you guys to take care and have a good one.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the